We now welcome in on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline, college basketball insider, expert, NCAA.com correspondent, Andy Katz. Andy, welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Andy, I'm sure you can imagine that collectively BYU Sports Nation, fans, coaches, staff, anybody who roots for BYU was thrilled to find out that Yoeli Childs was returning to BYU, and that was unexpected. What kind of a difference do you expect Yoeli to make for BYU basketball during his senior season?
Well, I mean, first of all, very few players, let alone no one last season. I can't remember a time someone ever had 31 three-straight games. He has the potential to be WCC Player of the Year and somewhere on an All-American list. I had him as my second-ranked, power forward, small forward, whatever you want to call him. He's one of the best at his position, and I think that gives Mark Pope the kind of anchor that he desperately needs in his first go-round as head coach of BYU.
What are some of those qualities of Yoeli Childs that made you feel like he's the second-best small forward in the country?
Well, I think his consistency, the fact that, he can not just score, but he can board, he can alter shots, he's active, he shot over 50% last year, made over 70% of his free throws, three-point numbers obviously could come up, takes care of the basketball. I mean, he does a little bit of everything for them.
Andy Katz with us on BYU Sports Nation talking about BYU basketball. You bring up Mark Pope. What do you think of his 2 months of tenure as the head coach thus far?
Well, look, everyone knows the pool is not a deep pool when you have a coaching change at BYU. But the pool is rich with talent, and I would put him at the top of the list. I mean, the timing was right. He's got incredible enthusiasm and energy. And, and I want to make sure that I want to make this clear. Gabe Rose is of the highest character. He is an unbelievable human being, and I thought he did an outstanding job. But I think he would also say that there was a time when, maybe they needed a fresh face. And you could make an argument that there are times when a program maybe gets a little stale if someone's been there for quite some time. And the one thing that, that I'm not saying Mark Pope has the answer for, but there was definitely some befuddling losses at times, that were a little just questionable. I mean, the way sort of the season ended against San Diego obviously was troubling. Early on, there was just some blowout losses that were a little just didn't make sense. And, sometimes over the course of their WCC tenure, they would beat Gonzaga, which they had some great success at, especially in Spokane, and then lose to the lower level of the league. And that's the kind of thing that has to change if BYU is going to be a consistent presence in the top three and getting into the tournament.
BYU brings back a lot of the pieces from a 19-win team that didn't make the NIT, but there's a lot of hope because of a new coaching staff and the addition of Jake Toolson, the WAC Player of the Year at Utah Valley, coming over as a grad transfer with Mark Pope. What kind of addition do you feel like Jake Toolson can be to this team this season?
Well, look, I think BYU should be one of the four teams that are vying at the top. I mean, Gonzaga's the favorite. And then after that, I think it's St. Mary's, BYU, and the sleeper team, by the way, which those that are following the league know that they're not that much of a sleeper, but I would not dismiss Pepperdine. I think Pepperdine's going to really rise up and be a factor and finish maybe in that fourth spot. But I think you could get a league where you get three teams in the tournament, and maybe four, we'll see. But I think Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and BYU should be right there to get in. And adding someone like Toolson obviously adds the depth that they need at BYU.
Follow him at the Andy Katz on the Twitter machine. Andy, as we move forward in college basketball with the direction that scheduling and building an at-large resume is going, what's the best philosophy for BYU to get into the tournament with that at-large bid? Because if we're honestly speaking, Gonzaga is typically going to take that auto bid out of the WCC winning in Las Vegas.
Well, but here's the thing with BYU. They have scheduling, as you know. And if you were to take any other team in the league outside of Gonzaga and say, okay, can we do a home and home with? Can we bring them to a high-profile neutral court tournament? It's BYU. And so I don't think scheduling's been as much of a problem for them. It goes back to winning some of those games, but also not losing the bad games. That's been the problem. So like even though it's a rivalry game, losing at Weber State this past season, losing at Illinois State. I mean, this past year, played at Nevada to open the season, which at that time was probably top 10. They played against Houston, which, had one loss the whole regular season. Played Utah State, which ended up winning the Mountain West. In normal years, Utah would have been better. UNLV would have been better. San Diego State would have been better. They did play Mississippi State, which was a team that was right on the cusp. That on the preseason would certainly look like we're going to definitely be an NCAA tournament team. So, and ultimately did get in and lost in the first round of Liberty. So the schedule had games in there to get them in if they, even if they finished third, which they did in the WCC, but they didn't win the game they needed to win.
BYU probably has to venture out and play more of these true road games to get quad ones, top 75, as we know. So as a non-Power 6 team, it feels like getting an at-large as a team like that is becoming more difficult. And Dave Rose was hesitant, Andy, to go out and play these teams out on the road at times, right? Last year he said, you know what? The philosophy has changed with the committee. I've got to go out and do this. So do you see Mark Pope kind of going out and do this if BYU is going to be in an at-large position?
Yes, and it'd be great if we could get a game with Kentucky, and go back to Kentucky. Because BYU, now Kentucky's not going to return the game, but what BYU needs to do, and I think the whole league needs to do, is take advantage of some of their locations. For example, you could play a doubleheader in Salt Lake City. You could play one at the new Warriors building in San Francisco and have USF as part of that. Maybe bring it to BYU. You could do one in LA, obviously, because you have Loyola down there. Could you do one at the Moto Center with Portland because Portland is there and Blaze? So those kind of teams like playing in pro arenas, neutral court. So try to set up things like that. I think the WCC also should be more aggressive in trying to figure out maybe some scheduling things with the Big East, which is a like-minded conference, which has the same amount of number of teams. So, you could do some sort of challenge to help in scheduling in that regard. Dive into the Big 12, which, only has 10 teams. So look for matchups that would be advantageous to both schools. You don't have to do all the teams. Maybe you do the top 4 and try to go out and really, aggressively try to build those kind of schedules on a neutral court or even if you have to go with a one-way on the road.
Andy Katz, NCAA.com correspondent, college basketball insider on BYU Sports Nation. Andy, you've been covering this game a very long time. You're a savant. Just strictly stepping back and looking at the rule changes, the three-point line, moving back to that international distance, and the offensive shot clock impact on an offensive rebound. You don't get as much time. You get 20 seconds instead of a full 30. Why or why not are those changes a good thing for college basketball?
Well, I like uniformity, and so having the college game and the international game match, I think, is important because a lot of the college players end up playing internationally in FIBA. So, I think that's great. I was glad they didn't mess with the lane because then it allows post players to still, be a factor inside. I think if they pushed it too wide, then you're going to take away your traditional post up. Reset the 20 seconds after an offensive rebound could speed things up, which is always good. And you want to make things a little bit more, palatable for television, unlike some of the other sports that can take forever. So, we'll see if the percentages drop, but I think that changes like that, ultimately, we looked last year, we saw plenty of players like Carson Edwards from Purdue who were shooting beyond that line anyway.
Yeah.
So they've been working on so many guys want to, they're taking shots like they're in the NBA. So to move it back 2 feet, I don't think will be that dramatic.
Yeah, it won't affect my pickup either. I'm still going to shoot from that distance, Andy. It's not going to be an issue, you know?
Well, no one's going to guard you from there.
Exactly. Let's finish with this. We're always interested in how Gonzaga is shaping up. And I think as long as Mark Few is the guy in Spokane, this is Gonzaga's league, right, in the West Coast Conference. So do you anticipate that Gonzaga will continue to be as dominant as they have been? Because it feels like BYU came to the league, there was kind of a challenge there, and then Gonzaga has become this top 5 program in college basketball.
Yeah, no, look, they're the dominant team. They've got the most talent, but they've been beatable in the tournament with St. Mary's, at home by BYU. So, but I think it's good for the league. Because if you're BYU, you are guaranteed that at least 2 of your league games, you'd like more, but at least 2 for sure, are going to be quad 1 every year. So that's a guarantee for you that other leagues can't say. You know, I mean, the A-10 can't always say that. The Mount West can't always say that. The Missouri Valley can't always say it. But I think in the WCC, you're guaranteed at least 2 league games will be quad 1.
Andy, great stuff. We appreciate the time and talking with you. And it's not often we get to talk to somebody that worked at the Albuquerque Journal in the early 90s and can appreciate BYU basketball from a very unique perspective.
And, quick story, I actually interviewed but didn't get the job at the Deseret News.
What?
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Who do I need to talk to, Andy?
You could have been covering BYU, man.
This would have been in somewhere in the mid-'90s.
For the beat writer spot? For a beat writer?
Cover BYU. To cover BYU.
Come on!
Well, that's probably one of the greatest things that's happened to you, right? To not get that job.
It's a true story. So instead of that happening, I ended up going to Fresno.
There you go. The Fresno Bee, no less. Andy,
Yeah.
Great to talk to you, man.
I would have been a better skier. All I know is I would have been a better skier.
No doubt. No doubt.
You're always welcome in Provo. We'd love to have you at the BYU broadcasting facility sometime as well.
All right, thank you.
Andy Katz on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future. He can ski on the slopes in Utah anytime he wants.
I think he would have had a better shot at the job if he knew how to say the name of the paper.
Not the Deseret News?
I think that would have helped him. But, like I said, I think that was a good career move.
It worked out. ESPN,
He went to
NCAA.com,
ESPN.
Big
That was
Ten
great.
Network. Yeah, he's doing just fine.
I think Jeff Call got the job instead. Jeff Call's been around for a long time.
Jeff's been there, like 23 years?
My pseudo-relative with Mormon colonies ties. Uncle Jeff, I call him.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about
We're
that.
probably related, you know? It got weird.